All right, welcome back. So I actually uploaded a different version of this earlier today, but then while I was uploading, I realized I think there's a faster way to do it, just a little bit, and then it turns out that it is faster. So here is the new solution video. All right, so the question today is counting elements. It's a brand new question that they released just for this contest, and the question is, given an array, output the number of counts of where the element's bigger, like the next integer after that element exists. So for example, 1, the next integer is 2, and we see 2 does exist. 2, the next integer is 3, and 3 does exist, so we count it. 3, the next integer is 4. 4 doesn't exist in this array, so we do not count it. And in this case, you can see that the one bigger are the even numbers, so 2, 4, 6, 8, and none of them exist, so we don't count anything. And here you can see that we count these two ones because a 2 exists. And the case that they didn't have here is that we would actually have the same behavior if we didn't have this second 2. So as long as the next integer exists, we will count all the previous ones. So that's what they meant by if there's duplicates, count them separately. But we don't need to pair them separately. As long as 1, 2 exists, we count all the ones before it. All right, there's some constraints, and we're actually going to use these constraints to our benefit as we solve this problem. Okay, so given an input, for example, 1, 1, 2, what we can construct is an exists map that just basically says whether or not this element an exists map, and what this exists map does is everything starts out as false, and there's a lot more to this. And then what we do is this telling us if the number 0 exists, the number 1 exists, the number 2 exists. So the index to our exists map at I tells us does I exist in the array. So it starts out as all false because we haven't read anything yet. And we know exactly the size of this exists map because every number in our array can't be past 1,000. So basically, when that means the maximum that we can get here is 1,000. And what we'll do is in our exists map, when we see 1, we will set this as true. We've seen 1. 1, we set it to true again. 2, we set it to true. And then 1,000, we would set the 1,000th one to true. So how does this exists map help us? Well, when we're reading the array, and we're trying to decide, should we count 1? The question we're asking ourselves is, does 1 plus 1, 2 exist? And that's where we can just ask our exists map 2. Exists map 2. So if this returns true, then 2 exists, we should count. We should add 1 to our count. Okay, so how big does our exists map have to be? Well, the biggest number we're going to query is 1,000, and we're going to index into does 1,001 exist? So in order for this to not break on us, we need exists map that is 1 bigger than that. So this holds everything from 0 to 1,001 inclusive. So it has a size of 1,002. And now we read every number in our array, and at that end, we will set it to true. We've seen this number and it does exist. Now we scan through it again. And now this time, when we come across a number, we just ask if exists map, the one bigger than it, exists, then let's keep track of our total count. Then we can increment our total count by 1 because we should count that. And then at the end, we will return total count. All right, let's make sure everything's compiles. And looks like it does, and we'll submit. Let's see. All right, after we submit, if it's accepted, we'll go through what's going on in the code, what's the runtime, what's the space. Okay, so let's look through our code. So in here, we allocate an array of a constant number of elements, 1002. And then we loop through all n of the elements. So here we loop through all n of the elements. And here we loop through all n of our elements again. So in total, our runtime is n plus n. So it's still O of n. And then our space complexity here, we can actually say it's O of 1 because it doesn't grow or shrink with depending on the size of our input. It's just always 1002. Okay, so that's the end of day 7, and I'll see everyone on the next one.